Rushes, the first of 2022. I keep saying 2021 because I can't quite believe 2021 came and went. So here it is, the weekly rush through the rushes. And as is tradition, I'm going to drink my coffee before we get cracking with all the film and streaming news of the last week, and a little bit more. Okay, so the first story today is J.K. Rowling is once again in the crosshairs of someone else regarding potentially the anti-Semitic portrayal of the Goblins in Harry Potter. On a recent episode of The Problem with Jon Stewart, the presenter drew parallels between Harry Potter's goblins and anti-Semitic caricatures in anti-Semitic literature. Jon Stewart said, he actually said this: "Here's how you know Jews are still where they are," said Stewart, who's Jewish. "I just want to show you a caricature," and they're like, "Oh, look at that, that's from Harry Potter," and you're like, "No, that's a caricature of a Jew from an anti-Semitic piece of literature." J.K. Rowling was like, "Can we get these guys to run our bank?" Stewart said, "Well, so which is a clear accusation, suggestion and inference that J.K. Rowling took inspiration from anti-Semitic material in the development, design, characterization of the Goblins who run the bank." But Jon Stewart has since corrected his words to say this: "I do not think J.K. Rowling is anti-Semitic. I did not accuse her of being anti-Semitic. I do not think the Harry Potter movies are anti-Semitic. I really love the Harry Potter movies, probably too much for a gentleman of my considerable age." Such a complete reversal on his attitude suggests to me that some kind of legal letter perhaps was sent by J.K. Rowling's team. It's a pretty hefty accusation. And what do you think, guys? If a character is portrayed in a certain way, could it not just be coincidence that this sort of chimes with some awful, admittedly awful portrayals from the past? You know, J.K. Rowling is under the gamut a bit. Obviously, the trans community have essentially cancelled her, including the cast of Harry Potter. I don't know how you feel about that. So she's been caught in something of an anti-Semitic sort of maelstrom of just bad news, really. I mean, the terrible thing is whenever something like anti-Semitism comes up, it rarely goes away. The story of Chris Noth, we know Chris Noth from Sex and the City, and he's obviously in And Just Like That. Originally, when we reported or talked about this last year, there'd been 2 accusations of sexual impropriety and misconduct. There's since been more, but interestingly, HBO decided to remove him. Apparently, he dies off in the series. Spoiler alert there. And in the final episode, there's a sort of a flashback to a moment which involves Chris Noth. HBO Max have cut that scene. They've cut that moment from the final episode. So Mr. Big has gone completely in more ways than one. HBO Max haven't commented on this, but more accusations are coming. And I think he was in the last episode of The Equalizer, but likewise, he's leaving that show too. Kelvin Harrison Jr. is a cracking young actor. He was in Loose. He was in another movie which we reviewed on the channel a couple of years ago called Waves. He's just been cast, Kelvin Harrison Jr., to play Jean-Michel Basquiat in a new biopic that's called Samo Lives. Basquiat has been represented in the past. He was played, I believe, by Jeffrey Wright in a movie some years ago. I think it was in the 80s or 90s even, quite a while ago. But Kelvin Harrison is going to reinvigorate the part. Obviously, Basquiat being, would you say he was a pop artist? He was more a sort of street graffiti artist. He became the youngest artist to exhibit at the Whitney Biennial in New York, and he died in 1988 at the awfully young age of 27. He was obviously plugged into the whole Andy Warhol, early days of Madonna and all that kind of stuff. So he's quite a cult figure. I know for a fact that our daughter Kiki is a huge fan of his, so she'll be drawn to this, and she's a fan of Kelvin Harrison Jr., fabulous young actor. Brad Pitt. What are your opinions on Brad Pitt? I always kind of feel like I want him to be better in the parts that he's in. Obviously, he won an Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I like him, but I always kind of want to like him a bit more. Brad Pitt is to star in a new film as a Formula One, or a sort of retired Formula One racer. It's being directed by Top Gun Maverick's Joseph Kosinski, produced by Jerry Bruckheimer, who I believe also produced Top Gun. It's a huge project. There's a price tag on it of about 130 to 140 million. Apple TV, look like they've picked this up. But he's attached to this, Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt apparently was attached to doing something about Carroll Shelby, who was the racer who likewise helped Christian Bale in Ford v Ferrari to kind of, win the Grand Prix, win the race, what have you. Apparently Brad Pitt originally wanted to do something about that character played by Matt Damon. Didn't get a chance. But in a sense, I think maybe he needs to leave this alone. I do feel that Ford v Ferrari did a very good job of making Formula One incredibly compelling, but also with a sort of humanist story behind it. I doubt Brad Pitt has the strength of either Christian Bale or Matt Damon to give it sort of any nuance. So yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big casting decision. It's a big project. But it's one of those projects that I almost think, is there anyone in the executive position who can see that potentially this isn't going to work? Big casting story of the week, Chris Evans. Now, we posted this on our Instagram, Popcorn Junkies Instagram account. A number of you were feeling that Chris Evans wasn't quite right for the part, but it is partly Chris Evans' idea. The project is being produced by Rian Johnson, who made Knives Out. Obviously, he was responsible for the final Star Wars film that caused a lot of upset. But Evans, what is the idea? What is he being cast as? Well, he's being cast as Gene Kelly. And the idea, which Chris Evans himself came up with, Chris Evans being the actor who plays Captain America, not the TV presenter from the UK, or TV and radio presenter from the UK. The film is about, and this is a brief blurb, a 12-year-old boy who works on the MGM lot in 1952 creates an imaginary friendship, so not a real friendship, but an imaginary friendship with Gene Kelly while Kelly's working on his next film. Big question is, will the film be Singing in the Rain? That would be rather fabulous, wouldn't it? But Chris Evans is going to play Gene Kelly. So does Chris Evans secretly harbour some dance moves and a sing-song? Interesting casting. But who would you prefer to take on Gene Kelly? Keanu Reeves. I'm not entirely sure if Keanu Reeves will be particularly pleased with the reception of Matrix Resurrections. I know for die-hard fans, it was just another sort of piece in the jigsaw puzzle of the Matrix universe, if you like. Keanu Reeves is eyeing up a new TV series called The Devil in the White City. I don't know anything about this, but it's by Eric Larson. It's an excellent novel, apparently, which blurs reality and fiction. Originally, the idea or the project was going to be made by Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese. It was going to be made into a feature film, but instead, Hulu have picked up the rights to this, and it looks like Keanu Reeves is going to star within this. I'm going to give you a sort of blurb on what the book is about and what we could look forward to. It's a very curious idea. It chronicles two men, Daniel H. Burnham, who's a brilliant and fastidious architect racing to make his mark on the world, but it cross-cuts or intercuts with a much more historic story of a serial killer, Dr. H.H. Holmes, who might not have gained the infamy of Jack the Ripper, but is alleged to have killed a number of people back in 1893. Which character will Keanu Reeves go for? Another massive casting decision this week. Audrey Hepburn is going to be played by Rooney Mara. Rooney Mara obviously was in the movie Carol. She's twice Oscar nominated. She's going to be playing Audrey Hepburn in a biopic of the star of the silver screen's life, the star of Breakfast at Tiffany. Interestingly, it's going to be directed by Luca Guadagnino. I can never get his surname right. Luca Guadagnino, who directed Call Me By Your Name and also directed the remake of Suspiria. He's a curious director. I think he's also coming off the back of making Call Me By Your Name 2. Rooney Mara is also producing the project, and it will profile the story and the arc of Audrey Hepburn from ballet dancer through to star of Broadway and musicals, through to her obviously winning Oscars for Roman Holiday and things like that, leading up to Breakfast at Tiffany's. You know what? A lot of people love Audrey Hepburn. I think she looks beautiful. She's iconic. She's truly iconic of an era that I think we all pine for. She was there at the right moment to sort of manifest an era. But I never thought she was a particularly good actress. I mean, I know that's a terrible thing to say, but she never set me on fire. She never inflamed me. She never got me ignited. Any other fire analogies I can't think of. My Fair Lady. It's all right. It was all right. Ridley Scott has decided that Vanessa Kirby is going to boot Jodie Comer out the way for the role of Josephine Bonaparte. Vanessa Kirby will be acting opposite Joaquin Phoenix, however you want to pronounce it. I know it causes a lot of consternation, but there we go. She's starring opposite him. He's playing Napoleon Bonaparte in the new movie by Ridley Scott. This is quite a significant story in that Vanessa Kirby has nudged Jodie Comer out the way, but that's mainly due to Jodie Comer's extraordinarily busy shooting schedule. So she's not available, so instead Vanessa Kirby stands in. It's called Kitbag, and it profiles Napoleon's swift rise to power as an emperor, but it also looks at his sort of rather compulsive and tempestuous relationship with his wife. I think this could be incredibly rich. That said, I hope Ridley Scott doesn't make the same mistake I felt he made with House of Gucci. I think there's more hope that it'll be more along the lines of The Last Duel, though that wasn't a commercial success either. So The jury's out on how great this will be. Vanessa Kirby is one of our favourite actresses. She obviously played the young Princess Margaret in The Crown. She was nominated for an Oscar for Pieces of a Woman, in which I thought she was great. She was acting opposite Shia LaBeouf, and it was unfortunate in that Shia LaBeouf got caught up in the sort of sandstorm and media sort of nightmare of his treatment of women, specifically FKA Twigs, who he'd been in a relationship with. But I think she's a great pair of hands. She's got great range as an actress, Vanessa. She's also to be seen in the follow-up. She's been signed up for the follow-up of The Father, which starred Anthony Hopkins, and she's starring in The Son. Couple of fun stories here. Are any of you old enough to remember Fraggle Rock? Down at Fraggle Rock, down at Fraggle Rock. And their lovely little heads sort of running around with hair kind of flopping about. It was kind of like a Muppets, but sort of in a cave. And I don't know, it came at the right time for me. And I love Fraggles. I just think their name is so fun. Anyway, Fraggle Rock is returning to Apple TV. They previously made some shorts called Fraggle Rock Rock On, but this is called Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock. And this will be 13 episodes, all debuting from the 21st of January. There is a trailer out. Who's your favourite Fraggle, guys? Fraggle Rock isn't necessarily animated, but these are kind of ideas that were aimed at kids. Well, the next story revolves around an animated series or animated characters that were very much aimed at really my age when I was about 18 or 19, 17, 18, 19. Beavis and Butthead. Could Beavis and Butthead be coming back? Their creator, Mike Judge, tweeted an image of Beavis and Butthead as middle-aged men. And what was really worrying to me was one of them, I can't remember which, looked frighteningly like me, with a little paunch, a little tummy, looking incredibly sort of 50-something, 40-something, 50-something. So the images show the duo in middle age, and, you know, this has kind of got people talking about, is there going to be a movie? Is there going to be a series? And if that happens, you know, to what extent are they going to be exactly as they were? Could this fall foul of the Dumb and Dumber remake or follow-up or sequel, which I went to because I'm a Jim Carrey fan, and it just did not fire on any cylinders whatsoever. So fingers crossed that this kind of continues that. I mean, it was quite funny at the time. Whether it will carry through, whether it will cut through in this incredibly sort of sophisticated, witty, animated landscape of Rick and Morty and such like, I don't know. The writer and director Peter Bogdanovich died this week at the age of 82. He's probably a name that not a lot of people know of. He was nominated for Oscars for The Last Picture Show, but the film that I really remember him for was Paper Moon. I don't know if you remember that. Absolute classic, starring Tatum O'Neal. She was maybe 8, 9, 10. She won her Best Supporting Actress Oscar for her partner, and obviously she was playing the daughter of her real-life father, Ryan O'Neal. It was a really, I thought, quite beautiful film. Bogdanovich came to fame and rose through the ranks through Roger Corman's studios, Roger Corman was a sort of master producer of really gritty, sort of low-budget B-movies, but a lot of directors came through him, most notably probably Martin Scorsese, and Bogdanovich came through too. And so it's with great sadness. One of his muses was Sybil Shepherd, and he's being remembered this week. He died at the age of 82. So that brings us to films of the week. What films are landing this week? Well, some films are landing this week, but I'm going to also mention some films that landed whilst we were away over the Christmas period. One of the big releases is The 355. This is a Jessica Chastain, Mission Impossible-esque CIA espionage type thing, international secret agents working with Jessica Chastain. It's not my cup of tea, if I'm honest. It really also depends on whether you like Jessica Chastain. I don't mind her, but I can't say she's enough of a star to draw me to see a film. There's a lot of press and push around this. I think, you know, there's a real need for a film by Jessica with Jessica Chastain in it to perform well at the box office. So that's The 355. If you like procedural stuff, a bit of action, a bit Mission Impossible sort of meets a bit of James Bond, that's your cup of tea. Another film of the week is Boiling Point, starring Stephen Graham. And what's most notable about this is the story or portrait of a chef, a restaurant chef. I don't know if it's a high-end restaurant, maybe. And it's a one-take film. They shot it in one take. And he plays, really, a chef who's under pressure from all sides. He's got financial worries, he's addicted to drugs, he's got getting bad reviews, or he's got a reviewer coming in. And this just takes the pulse of Stephen Graham across a sort of 90-minute to 100-minute period of time. So I'm going to be drawn to this just on a purely technical front and on a performative front. It'd be interesting to see how Stephen Graham performs in one take. and curious to know how many takes they did. I think they did quite a few to make this work. A film that was released over the Christmas period was The Electrical Life of Louis Wain. I'm only giving this a sort of mention because the trailer is quite intriguing. We never reacted to it on the channel, but it stars Benedict Cumberbatch. It stars Claire Foy. If you haven't seen A Very British Scandal on TV, BBC iPlayer, please check it out. Claire Foy, quite something. Interesting to see her as a sexual beast rather than just the Queen. This is the story of a real-life illustrator who became infamous for illustrating cats, but it looks like an hallucinogenic, strange, quirky, perhaps a bit twee, but adventurous biopic. And the other film that we'd really urge you to go and see, the review is going to be landing on the channel at some point this weekend, is Licorice Pizza, Paul Thomas Anderson's new take on fumbled love in 70s Los Angeles. Sun-baked, sunny comedy of errors, the heartache of young love, and some absolutely hysterical vignettes and little moments and scenes in this film that, for me, more successfully portrays Hollywood at a certain point in time, namely the 70s, than Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And there you have a rushed rush through this week's Weekly Rushes.
For more film and family fun, don't forget to click the subscribe button and make sure to click the bell to never miss an update.